makes me thirsty. Interesting. I see nothing. Such a pride.
For over a decade, the Twilight fandom has embraced a bizarre, unspoken contradiction. Aro Volturi, the 3,000-year-old leader of the vampire world's totalitarian regime, a mass murderer responsible for the deaths of millions, is one of the franchise's most beloved characters. Fans do not merely tolerate him, they adore him. They make TikTok edits of his theatrical gestures, quote his campy lines endlessly, and argue that he is the most interesting figure in the entire saga. This devotion has almost nothing to do with the character George Martin once called the most terrifying villain in modern fantasy. It has everything to do with Michael Sheen. Sheen's electrifying, high camp performance created a psychological shield around Aro, transforming a cold-blooded executioner into a charming eccentric. This is the Sheen effect, a phenomenon where an actor's personal magnetism and theatrical brilliance create a halo effect that completely obscures the canonical horror of the character they portray. We do not see the monster who burns entire villages to protect his power. We see the giggling, hand-clapping showman who steals every scene he is in. We do not fear the tyrant who rules through terror and torture. We root for the charismatic performer who makes even the most tedious exposition feel like a spectacle. This analysis will deconstruct this dangerous paradox, stripping away the aesthetic charm to reveal the true horror of Aro Volturi that Sheen's performance deliberately masks. We will examine how the halo effect warps audience morality, contrast the literary predator of the books with the cinematic eccentric of the films, trace how meme culture has further sanitized his war crimes, and argue why restoring the true stakes of the Volturi is essential to understanding the Twilight Saga's core themes of power and oppression. By the end, we will confront an uncomfortable truth. The greatest trick Michael Sheen ever pulled was convincing the world that a monster was just a harmless theater kid. The actor as an aesthetic shield, the halo effect in action. To understand the Sheen effect, we must first examine the psychological principle that powers it, the halo effect. First identified by psychologist Edward Thorndike in 1920, the halo effect describes our tendency to judge a person's entire character based on one positive trait. If we find someone attractive, charming, or entertaining, we automatically assume they are also intelligent, kind, and moral. This cognitive bias is so powerful that it can override even the most damning evidence of wrongdoing, and Michael Sheen weaponized it perfectly. Sheen's performance is a masterclass in deliberate charm. He plays Aro not as a menacing monster, but as a theatrical connoisseur, a man who approaches every interaction with the glee of a child opening a present. He claps his hands excitedly when he meets a new vampire with a unique gift. He giggles at clever remarks. He speaks in a soft, melodic voice that makes even threats sound like invitations. Every gesture, every inflection, every facial expression is calibrated to delight and entertain, not to terrify. This performance creates an immediate psychological barrier between the audience and Aro's crimes. When we see Sheen's infectious smile, our brains automatically associate him with positivity and joy. We cannot reconcile the charming man on screen with the mass murderer described in the books. Our brains resolve this cognitive dissonance by ignoring the character's evil deeds and focusing solely on the actor's entertaining performance. We cheer for his dramatic entrances. We forget that he is a man who has ordered the execution of thousands of innocent vampires and humans alike. The contrast between the performance and the character's actions could not be starker. In Breaking Dawn, Aro casually orders the execution of an entire coven of vampires simply because they created a hybrid child. The scene should be horrifying, a display of absolute power and ruthless cruelty. But Sheen delivers the order with a playful grin and a theatrical wave of his hand, and suddenly it feels like a punchline rather than a death sentence. The audience does not recoil in horror. They smile. They make memes. They comment on how iconic his delivery is. The aesthetic delight of the performance completely overrides the visceral horror of the act. This is the genius and the danger of the aesthetic shield. It turns violence into entertainment. It turns tyranny into theater. It allows us to enjoy a monster without feeling guilty about it, because we are not cheering for the murderer. We are cheering for the actor who plays him. But this separation is an illusion. The character remains the same. The crimes remain the same. We have just been tricked into looking away. The literary predator versus the cinematic eccentric. The gap between Stephen E. Meyer's literary Aro and the cinematic version portrayed by Michael Sheen is not merely a difference in interpretation. It is a complete rewrite of the character's core identity. In the books, Aro is not a charming eccentric. He is a nightmare made flesh, a physically repulsive, emotionally dead predator driven by a singular, insatiable greed for power. Meyer describes Aro's appearance as deeply unsettling. His skin is translucent, like milk glass, so thin that you can see the veins beneath. His hair is black as oil, and his eyes are a bright, unholy red that never blinks. Most terrifying of all is his stillness. He rarely moves. When he does, it is with the unnatural, fluid grace of a snake, never wasting a single gesture. He speaks in a soft, flat voice that betrays no emotion, and he never raises his voice. This stillness is not calm. It is the quiet of a predator waiting to strike, a reminder that he has all the time in the world to get what he wants. His motivation is equally terrifying. Aro does not care about theater or spectacle. He cares about control. For 3,000 years, he has systematically eliminated every threat to his power, burning entire covens, slaughtering entire villages, and murdering anyone who dares to challenge his authority. He collects vampires with unique gifts, not because he admires them, but because he wants to use them as weapons. He reads minds not out of curiosity, but to root out disloyalty and betrayal. He is a tyrant in the purest sense, a man who believes that all power belongs to him, and anyone who disagrees deserves to die. The film adaptation strips away every single one of these terrifying traits. The translucent skin is replaced with a pale, human-like complexion. The unsettling stillness is replaced with constant, exaggerated movement. Aro claps, waves, gestures wildly, and paces back and forth. The flat, emotionless voice is replaced with Sheen's melodic, expressive tone, full of laughter and delight. The cold, calculating predator is gone, replaced by a playful, quirky eccentric who seems more interested in putting on a good show than in ruling the vampire world. This fundamental rewrite completely alters the power dynamic between the Volturi and the Cullens. In the books, the Cullens are terrified of Aro. They know that he is smarter, stronger, and more ruthless than any of them. They know that he will not hesitate to kill every single one of them if they stand in his way. In the films, this fear is almost entirely absent. The Cullens treat Aro like a nuisance rather than an existential threat. The audience shares this lack of fear, because Sheen's Aro never feels dangerous. He feels like a joke, a funny, entertaining joke, but a joke nonetheless. The adaptation's choice to prioritize quirk over quiet cruelty did more than change a character. It broke the story's core conflict. If the villain is not terrifying, then the hero's struggle has no meaning. If the Volturi are just a bunch of dramatic weirdos, then the final battle in Breaking Dawn is not a fight for survival. It is just another performance. The erosion of narrative danger, when villains become punchlines. The most damaging consequence of the Sheen effect is the complete erosion of narrative stakes. A story's tension relies on the audience believing that the characters are in real danger, that the villain could actually win and destroy everything the heroes hold dear. When the villain becomes a beloved joke, this tension evaporates entirely. We no longer fear for the protagonist's lives. We wait for the villain's next entertaining line. This shift is evident throughout the Twilight films, but it reaches its peak in Breaking Dawn. The final battle between the Cullens and the Volturi is supposed to be the climax of the entire saga, a life-or-death struggle where every character's fate hangs in the balance. But because Aro is played for laughs, the battle never feels urgent. The audience does not sit on the edge of their seats wondering who will survive. They sit waiting for Michael Sheen to deliver his next iconic line. This is the vampire glamour paradox taken to its extreme. Vampires have always been portrayed as alluring, dangerous creatures whose beauty masks their brutality. But in Twilight, the glamour has completely swallowed the danger. We are more interested in the predator's charisma than in the safety of the prey. We care more about Aro's dramatic reactions than about the fact that he is about to murder dozens of innocent people. The film's infamous fantasy battle sequence makes this problem even worse. For 10 minutes, we watch a brutal, violent battle where dozens of characters die horribly. But because we know it is just a fantasy, and because Aro is still playing the clown, the deaths have no emotional weight. They feel like part of the performance, not real consequences. When the fantasy ends and Aro realizes he will lose, his panicked reaction is played for laughs, not for terror. The audience does not feel relief that the heroes have won. They feel disappointment that the show is over. This erosion of stakes fundamentally changes the story's message. Meyer wrote The Volturi as a cautionary tale about the dangers of absolute power and totalitarianism. They are supposed to represent the evil that comes when one person holds all the cards, when no one is above the law except the lawmaker himself. But when the face of this evil is a charming, funny man who makes us laugh, this message is lost. We no longer see the horror of totalitarianism. We see a good show. The Sheen effect does not just make us like a villain. It makes us trivialize evil. It teaches us that if someone is entertaining enough, their crimes do not matter. It turns the most serious themes of oppression and violence into a source of amusement. And that is a far more dangerous trick than any vampire could ever pull. Restoring the stakes, balancing charisma and cruelty. Recognizing the Sheen effect does not mean dismissing Michael Sheen's performance. On the contrary, his portrayal of Arrow is one of the most brilliant and memorable villain performances in modern cinema. He took a one-note literary villain and turned him into a three-dimensional, unforgettable character. The problem is not the performance itself. The problem is that the performance has completely overshadowed the character. To truly understand Arrow Volturi, we must separate the actor from the role. We must acknowledge that Michael Sheen's charisma is not Arrow's charisma. We must recognize that the charming eccentric we see on screen is a mask, and beneath that mask lies a cold, calculating monster who has killed millions to protect his power. This does not mean we cannot enjoy Sheen's performance. It means we must enjoy it with a critical eye, remembering that the character he plays is far more terrifying than the performance would have us believe. This balanced reading is essential to understanding the true horror of the Volturi's totalitarian regime. The Volturi are not scary because they are ugly, or growl, or have sharp teeth. They are scary because they are intelligent, patient, and utterly ruthless. They are scary because they rule through manipulation and fear, not through brute force. They are scary because they look like ordinary people, and they can convince you that their evil is actually good. That is the horror that Sheen's performance hints at, but never fully reveals. Future adaptations of Twilight would do well to learn from this mistake. A good villain needs charisma. Charisma makes them interesting, makes them compelling, makes us understand why people would follow them. But charisma should never be used to mask evil. It should be used to enhance it. The most terrifying villains are not the ones who snarl and roar. They are the ones who smile while they stab you in the back, who tell you it is for your own good, who make you want to follow them even as they lead you to your death. A perfect adaptation of Arrow would balance Michael Sheen's theatrical charm with the quiet cruelty of the literary character. He would be charming and entertaining, but there would always be a hint of danger beneath the surface, a flicker of coldness in his eyes, a moment of stillness that reminds you what he really is. He would make you laugh, but he would also make you afraid. He would make you want to like him, even as you know you should hate him. That is the true Arrow Volturi, a monster who wears a smile like a suit of armor. Michael Sheen's performance as Arrow Volturi is a double-edged sword. It elevated a forgettable literary villain into a cultural icon, giving the Twilight saga one of its most memorable characters. But it also created a dangerous paradox, where the actor's charisma completely obscured the character's canonical evil, softening the narrative's moral stakes and turning a genocidal tyrant into a beloved internet joke. The Sheen effect is not unique to Twilight. We see it everywhere in modern media. Fans defending villains because they are played by attractive or charismatic actors, trivializing their crimes because they are entertaining. This trend reveals a troubling truth about how we consume media today. We care more about style than substance, more about entertainment than morality, more about how a character makes us feel than about what they actually do. Arrow Volturi was never meant to be liked. He was meant to be feared. He was meant to represent the horror of absolute power, the danger of unchecked authority, the ease with which evil can hide behind a charming face. Michael Sheen's performance made us forget all of that. He made us love a monster. And that is the greatest trick any villain ever pulled. Now I pose these questions to you. Did you fall for the Sheen effect? Did you love Arrow because of Michael Sheen's performance? Or because of something inherent to the character? Do you think future adaptations should lean into the campy charm of the film version? Or should they return to the terrifying predator of the books? And most importantly, can a villain ever be too charismatic? Leave your detailed thoughts and arguments in the comment section below, and share which part of this deconstruction changed your perspective the most.